harm disproportionately affecting women and girls. From cyber harassment and stalking to the alarming rise of deepfake content targeting women, technology-facilitated GBV exacerbates existing gender inequalities and silences voices that deserve to be heard. We have an excellent lineup of speakers and discussants from the UN sector, from government agencies, NGOs, CSOs across the region. So let me introduce our first speaker, Dr. Jamie Stewart, who is the team lead at United Nations University, Macau. Thank you, Jamie. The floor is yours. The bios of our discussants and panelists will be in the chat box.
Thank you so much for the introduction there, Claudia. And if that's okay, I'll start. All right. Well, it's an absolute pleasure to be here at the side event on technology-facilitated gender-based violence. I'm going to be talking today about the risks and opportunities of AI for women and girls, and particularly looking at the rise of sexualized and gendered cyber threats. So as was mentioned, I am senior researcher and team lead at UNU Macau, and the critical interest that I have in this area is that I have been leading a project over the last 2 years within Southeast Asia on cyber resilience of women human rights defenders and women civil society organizations, and that's going to feed into the discussion today. In the work that I've been doing, one of the critical issues that we have found within the context of cybersecurity is that from the WPS, or the Women, Peace and Security Agenda framework, which in and of itself was designed to resolve disproportionate and unique impacts of violence and conflict on women and girls, cybersecurity is actually absent in many ways from the conversation, and is absent from the national action plans of many countries. I wouldn't say all of them at the moment. And this is particularly important because the pillars of the WPS are aligned to digital technologies in really clear ways. That is through participation in terms of strengthening women's leadership and participation in tech, protecting human rights and the safety of women, particularly regarding the unequal effects of TFGBV on women and girls. Prevention in terms of leveraging gender responsive approaches towards threats, harms and crimes, which will be much more of the discussion of other speakers. And relief and recovery. That is, how do we actually respond to gender sensitive responsive ways, especially in post-conflict and post-crisis contexts. So there has been a bit of research that's been undertaken. This is really wonderful. Wonderful report that discussed 5 trends in gender technology and security, of which we can see gender bias in AI is one of the critical components of that, but also there are other key issues that fall under the WPS security agenda as related to TFGBV. So I want to talk you through very broadly the context of gender and human-centered cybersecurity, which is cybersecurity as a field of study, of programming, is often very much technology focused. And what I mean by that is when we think about what we're going to protect, we often think about systems, technologies, and devices. Rather than the people who are using those devices, or the society, the rights of people that sit behind those systems. So a human-centered approach to cybersecurity would say that we should be treating people as the primary subjects of security, and that safety, prevention, and resilience are the main aim, rather than a corollary or a parallel aim to protecting digital devices. So the protection of devices should be a mechanism to achieve human security and protect human rights. And as APC very nicely put it, cybersecurity is inexorably intertwined with human security, and being safe online is a fundamental human right. How does that relate to gender? Gender fundamentally influences cybersecurity in all ways. Women have different levels of access to digital devices. They are less represented in leadership roles, particularly from cybersecurity and AI, and they face distinct vulnerabilities in this space as well. Also, in terms of the threats that they face, they have different types of threats, different pervasiveness, and different sources of threats. And when we exclude women from cybersecurity, the digital tools that we need to protect everybody are not representative of major populations. And this then has downstream effects on the types of new technologies and as they emerge. That is, women being underrepresented in AI or AI being biased against women is a specific effect of lack of inclusion. So how does this relate to TFGBV? TFGBV and cybersecurity are incredibly interconnected, and AI is related to increases in vectors for violence and reductions in security for women online. We know from research, specifically from UNESCO, but broader research, that AI has widespread impacts on online violence against women, and particularly on vectors for threat actors. That is, it makes it easier for widespread violence, for coordinated attacks, for technologies of surveillance, and for the spread of misogynistic and discriminatory content. But also, more than that, generative AI, the emergence of technologies such as ChatGPT, as well as chatbots and other type of algorithmic content, is increasing different types of vectors for violence against women in online spaces. More convincing fake media, greater volume of fake media, new unintended harms, and a whole variety of other issues. But of critical issue and importance is deepfakes and or fake media as it relates to deepfakes, because these have very specific influences and impacts on women. So those of you who don't know what deepfakes are, it's a word that's made up of deep learning, which is a type of machine learning or AI, and fake content. It's manipulated content or synthetic media that uses AI to represent a person's likeness, or computer-generated content of fake people. The word itself stems from pornography, and now pornography makes up 98% of all deepfake videos online as of 2023. 400% increase in deepfake content from 2022 to 23, and we're seeing increases every year. 99% of that content women are the target of. Not all of the deepfake content is for sexual gratification, but they do tend to be malicious and is a way of exercising power, or what we call virtual domination. They compromise identity, they damage reputation, they silence, intimidate, and humiliate not just women, but all of those people who are subject to them. And they are a way of people anonymously engaging in abusive, criminal, and non-consensual behaviors. So the impacts of these are devastating. They include mental health impacts such as helplessness, hopelessness, post-traumatic stress, and even suicidal ideation, social disruption, economic loss. And they're incredibly difficult to regulate. I'm not going to be able to go through all of these right now, but I do hope that the other speakers will talk about the crimes as they related to this. So there is some legislation in terms of data protection, false advertising, copyright, and identity theft. But they're very difficult to specifically target deepfakes as they currently target women. So there is, and the legislation itself that's related to deepfakes may have other unintended consequences, specifically for human rights defenders. So the regulatory instruments regarding cybersecurity laws can sometimes actually be used themselves to target and monitor and collect information, and may reduce citizens' powers in terms of online activities, prohibitions on the use of VPNs that can help keep people secure and safe, and retention of personal data. So that is to say that this is a really complex situation in which women are targeted more and have greater impacts of cybersecurity issues, particularly sexualized and gendered cybersecurity issues that are often made worse through AI. But I do want to say that it can also create opportunities for development. It doesn't just oppress and harm. Also designed and developed thoughtfully, it can reduce the gender digital divide, and it really can empower women, and specifically women human rights defenders. So I just want to very finally say, in this short amount of time that I had, that the research that we undertook in Southeast Asia, we also developed capacity building tools that is from the point of view of women human rights defenders and women civil society organizations. They are freely available for people to use and to engage with, as is the research on which this presentation was based upon. I do want to say that all of the work that we've done so far says that a gender-sensitive and human-centered AI makes the world a better place, not just for women, but for everybody. I want to thank you all very much for the time, and I apologize for the quick talking, but I did have lots of material that I wanted to get through today. Thank you all so much, and I will, I'll stop sharing now to pass it on to the other amazing speakers.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jamie Stewart. It was a really good presentation just for us to understand the concepts and the frameworks of cybercrime, deepfakes, and technology-facilitated GBV. Thank you, and please stay with us for the discussion. For the attendees, if you have any questions for Dr. Jamie, you can wait for the last session that we have around 10 minutes to ask questions to presenters and panelists. Our next presenter is Dr. Daniela Dora Helberg. She's an Associate Cybercrime Program Officer at the Regional Office for Southeast Asia and Pacific. Welcome, Daniela, and please feel free to start your presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and it is a great pleasure for me to be here. I would like to start by sharing my screen. I will start. I think I cannot share it. So just for the ones that don't know me, I'm Daniela Dora Helberg. I'm part of the Global Program on Cybercrime team for Southeast Asia and the Pacific. I have a PhD in criminal law and a JD in cybercrime and digital evidence. And just as a very broad idea of a picture of what our global program on cybercrime does. Our mission is to strengthen global responses to counter and prevent cyber-dependent and cyber-enabled crimes through lots of innovative, integrated, and customized solutions. We have mainly our areas of intervention, which are cyber investigation, cyber digital evidence, digital forensics, online child sexual abuse and exploitation, virtual assets, and cybercrime prevention. And what I'm going to talk about here, it's on the technology facilitated gender-based violence and how it is actually the cybercrime against women and girls are affecting, and specifically how did our work with Indonesia counterparts has been successful. I think now I can share my screen. Yeah. Yeah, so how we have been doing the work with Indonesia counterparts, and more specifically BSSN and IWCS, and on our work for TFGBV and cybercrime. So Dr. Jamie has already spoke a little bit on some of the content, the concept, but we have indeed some UN important documents that have a work on, and one of them, the CEDAW Committee General Recommendation number 35 on gender-based violence, is the first one in 2017 that has brought the attention to violence against women and how it manifests itself on a continuum of multiple interrelated and recurring forms in a range of settings from private to public, including technology. And mediated settings in all the contemporary globalized world and transcend national boundaries. And we indeed have the Commission on the Status of Women brought in the innovation and technological change and education in the digital age, how those digital platforms are designed to maintain and govern, and how do they has given a rise to disinformation, misinformation, and hate speech, which can actually undermine the fulfillment of women's and girls' rights. And we have also a very important document, Innovation and Technological Change and Education in the Digital Age for Achieving Gender Equality and the Empowerment of All Women and Girls, from CSW 67, the agreed conclusions that bring attention to important TFGBV components. And what we have done with National Cyber and Crypto Agency, BSSN, and Indonesian Women in Cybersecurity, IWCS, it's a specific research on addressing non-consensual intimate images abuses as a result of technology facilitated gender-based violence in Indonesia, and how deepfake impact women. So we have indeed some records on online gender-based violence against women in Indonesia from the National Commission on Violence Against Women, Komnas Perempuan. And deepfake as a very prominent issue, bringing up and impacting negatively individuals and victims in the society. And specifically related to the content, to create non-consensual pornography, which can cause psychological trauma and permanently damage one's reputation. And the research questions on how does the cycle and pattern of pornography content creation and distribution unfold in the Indonesian digital landscape, particularly in the context of TFGBV, was one of the questions. And the second one, what specific measures can law enforcement agencies, service providers, policymakers implement to prevent and counter the creation, distribution, and consumption of this pornography content as a result of the TFGBV, this technological facilitator gender-based violence, and specifically in the cybercrime against women and girls. So the methodology that we applied was OSINT techniques, open source intelligence techniques, to gather data from various online sources, which were chosen based on the Meltwater's Digital 2024 Global Overview Report, replacing YouTube by WhatsApp due to some platform limitations for the methodology. And they were, the accounts, channels, and website identified were classified when they exhibit one or more of the following criteria, which were distribution, production, or enabler platform. And then I would like to call the attention, I think we have some of the researchers here with us together, and they will be able to bring more information on this, on the very interesting findings of how Indonesia can bring how Indonesia is facing this issue on deepfakes, and how it's actually affecting the modus operandi of producing and disseminating deepfake content, according to BSSN research, gathering more than 60 cases that brought attention to how this deepfake pornography through editing services providers has become a very prevalent service offered across various social media platforms and also messaging applications. So it's very, very important for us, and a work that we have been doing as a global program on cybercrime team. It's on thinking about the responses to combat the cybercrime that are based on lots of different types of cybercrimes that we have, such as illegal access, illegal interception, interference with electronic data, and how does these images are bringing the challenges attention to basically how can we address, how can law enforcement address this issue for preventing, for responding, and for countering cybercrimes? And how do we, how can we think about specifically the issue of deepfake content, and now going back to the National Cyber and Crypto Agency's research findings on pornographic content that can be visualized with this scheme that they have developed in terms of a telegram of porn content sources and live streaming, CCTV, hidden recording, generative AI, and lovers' private content, and how does it go through Telegram channels, bot accounts to receive content, and also how can then we think about not only the of course we in the research we highlight the economic and social impacts. IWCS also has contributed in terms of the health impacts also, and how do we find financial deception and fraud, identity forgery, and low application and reputational damage and professional impact in victims, as well as misinformation and erosion of trust, psychological distress and social isolation, privacy violation and identity theft, and impact of freedom of expression and digital rights. At the same time that we have also other types of important issues that may be that need the attention, such as non-re-victimization and how to avoid the criminalization of victims, because the creation of this pornography content might be, the victims might be charged by some crimes. And this is an issue that we really need to address in terms of TFGBV, that requires coordinated efforts across law enforcement agencies, service providers, and policymakers. So we do recommend those three types of policy approaches for prevention, detection, and responding to technology facilitator gender-based crimes, and how specifically in this case, how is involving deepfake technology, and thinking on the private sector, also a very important role in terms of safety by design, in terms of information sharing, and how can we have this linking evidence across platforms and online services, and how the techniques of investigation for manipulated content, such as deepfake and doxing, have to be improved. And so we are doing this work in terms of building capacity on specifically those techniques, and specifically also the request to service providers, what should be identified in those grooming behaviors also, and we are talking about offenders' communication tactics, and also when we are talking about the distribution of illicit content, the linking of crimes, the requests, the documenting everything. So we have several recommendations focused then on those different stakeholders, the private sector, law enforcement, policymakers, and of course the health component. The government also needs to provide in terms of support for the victims, and how to integrate this support during the investigation process also. And how can we then have, when thinking on the forensics investigation specifically, for example, how to have at the same time a sensibility when thinking on the selective extraction and victims' consent and the related challenges on this topic. So I think I've reached to my my time. So thank you very much. Terima kasih for my colleagues from Indonesia, and I hope to hear you in the following lectures and the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dora, for telling us all these efforts that the UNODC is doing about preventing cybercrime and technology-facilitated GBV. We will then hear more in the discussion by Mrs. Evanur and Mrs. Nurul Sugarti, your partners in Indonesia. So now we will continue to the next presenter. So I would like to invite Mrs. Agita Pasaribu, who is a Bullyid app founder in Indonesia, to take the floor. Hello, Agita.
Hi, Claudia.
Thank you.
All right. I believe there will be someone who is going to share my screen. Okay. Thank you very much. So I'm Agita, and I'm the founder and executive director of Bullyid app. We are a non-for-profit organization focusing on addressing online harassment based in Indonesia. So will be sharing about our insights today on how we tackle gender inequality in AI by addressing a bias, but this is going to be Indonesian case study. For the next slide, for those who are not quite familiar about what we do. So Bullyid app, it's basically we provide confidential online psychological and legal support in Indonesia for victims of harassment. On top of that, we also collaboratively working with different stakeholders to escalate the removal content of non-consensual intimate image abuse. And on top of that, we also provide a lot of education and awareness and advocacy here in Indonesia. For the next slide, I'm going to share to you a little bit about the context why Indonesia it's quite prone in terms of the harassment cases, especially on the cyber harassment. We have over 200 million internet users in the country, and the digital landscape definitely offers opportunities, but also significant risks. And many of the users, especially young people, are very much vulnerable to exploitations, harassment, and abuse. The numbers that you see on your screen during the COVID-19 pandemic, online abuse cases surged by over 300% just within 3 months of lockdown. And this is exposing the urgency of addressing this issue. The next slide, you're going to see the most platforms where exactly the harassment commonly occurs in Indonesia. So you can see there's different bubbles in the different colors. What we observe is that many of the victims and perpetrators usually met through social media platforms, online dating platforms, gaming, sometimes even in the job professional platform, and in the video streaming and content sharing platform. And those in the black colors, you can see the distributions of those non-consensual intimate image abuse are often happen through messaging platforms, the dark web, and even adult website. So let me highlight to you the real cases that we basically has been receiving for the past 4 years since we launched the organization. For the next slide, you will see the first one is the cyber grooming and sextortion. So usually perpetrators often meet with the victims through online dating or gaming platform, and the cyber grooming progresses into video sex chat, and the perpetrators record screenshots, save the content, obviously without the consent of the victim. But during the process of the grooming, usually the victim has already developed a very personal relationship with the perpetrator. And so the victim are willingly to share some of the intimate pictures in the process when they are in relationship, sort of to say. And these materials, at some point, these materials are often weaponized for blackmailing from the perspective of perpetrators and demanding for money, more explicit content, with a sort of a threat to circulate these materials on social media or even to the victim's personal contacts. So what happened in here is the victim's definitely experiencing severe emotional trauma, social shame, and sometimes even a financial exploitations. The other aspect that we see also in terms of monetizing the non-consensual content, if the first one, it's in terms of getting money from the victim, this the monetizations of NCII in these cases, the perpetrators psychologically manipulate the victims into sending more and more intimate content, which is then being monetized. And this monetization normally happen on Telegram group, or sometimes even sold on the dark web or distributed on adult websites, which causing prolonged victimizations and economic exploitations from the victim. The last one, what we see getting even more for the past 2 years, is that with the advancement of artificial intelligence, now perpetrators can really create deepfake pornography by superimposing victims' faces onto explicit images. So the motivations could be very, very different. Sometimes it's revenge, sometimes to humiliate or coercion. And these materials are circulated on social media, the dark web, public pornography website, and the impacts that happen towards the victims is definitely in terms of reputations, the mental health crisis, and the loss of a trust of technology. So we've done a little bit of a survey through our own victims and people that we have served previously. So if we go to the next slide, you will then see what happened to them really. So from 252 respondents that we survey, 54% of them mentions they received unsolicited explicit image. Just to give a context, so these people basically Indonesians, they are young people between 18 to 30 years old, and they are actively using online dating platform. So the 54% respondents saying that they receive unsolicited explicit image, and nearly 90% of the victims reported being forced by their partner, which is, it could be partners that they met online, to send an intimate image. And sort of these numbers is definitely demonstrate a widespread systemic nature of an online abuse. Now, let's see on the challenges, right? Let's go to the next slide. The first challenges that we see, obviously, when it comes to online harassment, there is a cross-border issues in here. It's not necessarily the victims based in Indonesia. The perpetrator can be in a different part of the world. And that makes it very complicated to actually prosecute this issue. So the cross-border jurisdictional challenges is definitely an issue in here. And especially on the cases that we are dealing, it's considered as an adult pornography, and that makes it more complicated as it's normally it's being seen as a private issues in the country, rather than seeing this as a something that is on top of the priority of law enforcement. The other aspect that we see is in terms of the legal framework and implementations in the country, Indonesia. Previously, we have pornographic law in the country, which focus on content creation, distributions, and consumption. The pornographic law criminalize the production, distribution, and consumption of pornographic materials, which control material that morally harmful and focusing on regulating media and content. But this law provides this law basically sort of fail in distinguish between non-consensual distributions of content and the consensual creation. So sometimes with this law, the victims often face re-victimization during legal proceeding. So despite that we have progressing by passing the sexual violence crime law, however, we still see that during the investigations, there is a lack of transparency and technological measures in terms of identifying the perpetrators effectively. And there is an inconsistent that remains the same in terms of the law enforcement of dealing with this case, whether of using pornographic law or using the sexual violence crime law. So that's in terms of the legal aspect. The victim perspective, because lack of knowledge, Indonesia still do not really have a sexual educations in our national curriculum. That makes it very complicated to understand about the boundaries. So the victim lack of knowledge and awareness in terms of this aspect that make them reluctant to actually report this issue. So those kind of three main challenges that we see from the legal aspect and from the victim perspective. The next challenges that we see is coming from the social media perspective. So if we go to the next one, we see that many of the social media platform is also have lacking of a safety by design principles, which means lacking of risk assessment on how to deal to take down and escalating the removal of non-consensual intimate image abuse. And on top of that, the moment when we are taking down one single pictures or one single video or content, it doesn't mean that the platform will then going to be flagging the next following similar contents that circulated by a new anonymous content. So and here in Indonesia, we only have a very few social media platform that has a representative in the country. So that makes it very complicated to escalate an issue, knowing that there is a different layer of understanding pornographic and the understanding about nudity and community guideline in a social media platform. Next one. And next slide. So I think I've mentioned about this issue, about the challenges in Indonesia. I think we can moving forward next to how basically we help as the organization. If we go to the next one. So I think what we really need in terms of this is one is international cooperations in terms of legal framework to strengthen the relationship between law enforcement in different countries, and ensuring that the strengthening online platform between social media, online gaming, online dating platform, because I think at the current stage, we've heard a lot more the participations of social media company and focusing on improving their platforms, but we haven't heard that much in terms of online dating on online gaming platform, which I think is a very much essentials. And lastly, it's important to have a victim support and educations that also integrated with the online platform that is actually being used for majority of internet users. So if we go to the next one, how we're able to help with the victims, as I mentioned earlier, we provide confidential psychological and legal support. Something that we recently started to work as well, to work collaboratively with social media platform in Indonesia, which is Meta and TikTok currently, to help escalating the removal content that shared without the consent of the victim on those platforms. But unfortunately, I think we have seen more and more cases on online dating and online gaming platform, which unfortunately we don't have that relationship with those platforms at the moment. And other than that, it's obviously in terms of public awareness. So I'm running out of time, so I think I'm gonna stop in there, but I'm really happy to continue the discussions later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gita. That was wonderful. And congratulations for this important work that you're doing with the Bullyid Hub. There will be an opportunity maybe during the Q&A to follow up some of the points that you didn't have time to elaborate. Thank you. Now we are going to pass the floor to Mrs. Sagina Waliat and Dr. Risha Krishan from the Beacon of Rights. Please feel free to start and share your slides. Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah.
I am sharing the slides. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone from India. Thank you for such insightful discussion and setting the bar so high. Congratulations to all the presenter. And one thing I need to, please. Thank you, Richa. As I miss Sagina, so I just wanted to clarify. So in the beginning, so our topic for today is the National Strategy of India to curb the gender biases, which is very important today because India is not just a largest populous country in the world. It has its own unique challenges like, social, cultural challenges alongside the economical disparities we already have in India. And it is also important to study India's unique challenges because it has if you want to cover the entire South Asia region, which has shared cultural and common challenges in terms of women rights and in terms of women's status, both at the ground and the digital life. So India can be a good example to read about, which is identifying the challenges and now offering the solutions through this strategy which India has launched very recently. So I'll be starting with the briefly starting with the challenges we have. That is social cultural diversity. So like I just mentioned, alongside the patriarchal mindset or the deep-rooted patriarchal norms we generally encounter social cultural diversity alongside our geographical diversity also, because India as one country has different pockets, regional pockets. In one of the sector, like in South, you will see it is a digital hub. But when we go to the North India, it is a moderate one. But when we go to the Northeast India, it is very poor in performing at the digital level. So the geographical dimension is also a great consideration for India to how we can operate and move forward, advance in the inclusivity of that factor. Another factor to mention here is the workforce underrepresentation. Although, since decades, I would say the Indian government is investing so much in women education at the at gender level and that in the STEMs also. But when it comes to the joining the workforce, be it gender workforce or be it STEM workforce, we see that there is a dropout comparatively, if we compare the enrollment in education and joining the workforce. So there is a huge difference in comparison to that. So that is a very great challenge for India, because the funding and the resources India is providing is not being capitalized in a way that we want. The another thing is the gender divide data, which I'm going to provide here, is the corroborating fact that even after investing so much in rural-urban divide, we have 24% and the 66% respectively. And in the case of women and men, we see it's 43% and 53% respectively. So India has launched its India AI for All. When we talk about India AI for All, it talks about domestic vision and also the global vision. So in domestic vision, we have the schemes and everything, but India also it's trying to capitalize its vision for the global level as well and want to become a global leader in the AI. That is why if we see the investment, India is investing in AI infrastructure, inclusive AI infrastructure, that is $3 billion in the fiscal year of 2023 and 2024, which we expect to go up to $6 billion by 2027. So it reflects the intention of the government and the India leadership aspiration in the field of AI. So that is why we are developing a comprehensive ecosystem in healthcare, the major sectors of healthcare, education, infrastructure, transport, and all that. Moving on to the next slide, which is the biggest dimension that addressing the gender bias of this topic also, and India's vision for AI for all as well. So India, we have multiple legislations in place since starting from 2000, which now in today present scenario, I would say it's becoming outdated. So India has introduced more advanced and comprehensive legislation, that is digital. I can say is a best outcome of one of the global collaboration India has, that is called GPAI, which we'll be discussing later in this slide. So through the outcome of these collaboration, which can be reflected in India's strategy also, which is covering the gender representative data sets, and with the PPP, public-private partnership, with SEWA, which is SEWA, that is Self-Employed Women Association, and the NASCOM. It is one of the biggest non-profit organization which is collaborating with India to collect the data and also analyze it by mitigate its risk and de-biasing the algorithms. With this act, it is also, India has made it mandatory bias audits in the organization which are having the data collection and regularly using it. So it has become mandatory, and it has also introduced the provision of strict implementation, strict imprisonment, the penalties also if the companies, or we say the larger private companies and the PSU who are not abiding with the provisions of this. One of the key consideration, I would say, in the present act, the Digital India Act, which is which has been passed in the Indian Parliament, but yet to be enforced, and we expect it to be enforced by the end of this year in the winter session of Indian Parliament. It has set something, a very good benchmark and making the social intermediaries accountable. Earlier, India used to have, through the previous legislation or the legal framework, we used to have legal cover or the legal immunity the social media intermediary used to enjoy, like Facebook, Twitter. Now, with the new advanced provisions, it has taken away the legal cover from these intermediaries, and the penalties or the penal consequences can be initiated against those forums if they have gender sensitive or the biased data publishing on their platforms. Now moving towards the very brief of the Digital Act India, what it includes, it has given, I'm sorry, it has given the more clarified definitions. Because if we don't have this specific sections or the specific definitions to any cybercrime, which before the earlier legislation were not dealing it very clearly, but it was implicit but not getting very affected. Now it has its own redressal mechanism. It has speedy adjudication, and the introduction of specific sections like revenge porn, cyberbullying, dark web, and the cyber flashing. So this is also a kind of empowering gesture, I would say, empowering action to make women comfortable, because so far we have been struggling with the for not having clear mechanism on the redressal of these crimes. And this acts also promote the representation of women and gender minorities in tech development with the evolution of methodologies, different methodologies, and according with the PPP partnerships, the organization that working on the ground. And as a part of that, our organization is also covers legal and digital rights, which includes awareness and the redressal in case of we receive such kind of cases. Very important dimension this act has identified is the right to be forgotten. So in case of gender identified transition, it is interconnected to the right of privacy. I'm sorry. Right of privacy, because it is empowering mainly not just the women but the gender minorities as well. For example, a person, a male or a female who has changed, is transit into another gender identity. Now they don't want to show their previous content on social media, posing them as a male or a female. So this transition has also now been protected by the introduction of the right to be forgotten. The another aspect is the right to digital inheritance, which talks about we are now parallelly running a digital life along with the along with our life in a normal world. So with this inheritance, it has protected the assets like any general asset. It has protected the digital assets like crypto or the social media accounts, our content on social media, which are being capitalized in monetary terms as well. So in case the first-time user become deceased, then the legal heir of that person can take on the inheritance of that accounts. The very important dimension it has added is the cross-border jurisdiction. I would say, first of all, the first thing they have mentioned through this act is the definition of harm, because it is very important to define the harm if we want to have collaboration or cross-border jurisdiction. For a reason, if the objects are not common between one country and the two country, then we cannot punish or bring that person under one law. So the definition of harm can be a game changer in this act, the digital harm outcome. The slight mention of the international collaboration I would love to mention here is, which is, I would say, in these schemes which my co-presenter Richa will be introducing very shortly, is India schemes, and this particular legislation is reflecting all the collaboration, the bilateral or the regional collaboration India have through these frameworks. So India already have a collaboration with comprehensive collaboration with India and Germany, US and India, UK, India, and then the GPA, India is a founding member of the Global Partnership on AI, which is precisely working on the human rights and gender sensitivity, or the more inclusive and responsible and accountable AI to have in this world. While discussing this, I would also like to mention one SWAIT, SWAIT, that is a South Asia, that is covering the South Asia region for the Indian government, IIT Madras with Educational Institute. India is collaborating, which has so far trained and enrolled 200,000 women in South Asia, providing them the training and the skills on AI, which which is also, setting a not just the leadership of India and the aspiration of India in global arena in AI, but also setting up a way forward for the entire region in the South Asia. I request Richa now to take forward with these schemes. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. First, let me congratulate everyone that we are moving towards a successful event. Yeah. Okay. Starting from here, this is the first slide which I'm discussing today. So till date, there have been multiple schemes that India has launched with the objective of curbing gender bias in AI. Broadly, there are many schemes which I have presented here. They are the schemes which I'm sorry, I'm getting some disturbance from somebody. Yeah. So the key features which these schemes are covering are funding early access education, grant and aid, improving R&D infrastructure, STEM education, mentorship, seed funding, etc. I'm gonna herewith discuss with you two majorly successful schemes in brief, obviously, because of the time limit we have. So the first scheme I'm discussing here is the Vigyan Jyoti program. This is a Hindi term, just for everyone's knowledge. In general English, Vigyan Jyoti means science and tech enlightenment. So this program was initiated by the government of India in 2021. And this is with reference to promoting gender equality in STEM, that is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, with a focus on artificial intelligence. It aims to encourage and empower young girls, particularly from underrepresented groups, to pursue careers in science and technology. So this particular scheme, it organizes AI-related training sessions, hands-on projects, coding workshops to build foundational knowledge and practical skills that to be attained by women in the larger perspective, and connecting participation of women scientists, researchers, and industry experts with all the participating women. Then they work for awareness programs by highlighting importance of AI in future careers and their potential to solve global challenges. And another aspect which they work on is the skill development for providing access to cutting-edge resources, tools, and opportunities in AI research and applications. The next scheme, which here I'm discussing, is the gender advancement for transforming institutions, which in short we can call GATI. It is an initiative of Government of India in the year 2020, and it was inspired by the Athena Swan Charter of United Kingdom, which was launched in 2005 with a framework to advance gender equality in higher education and research institutions, particularly in STEM fields. So working on the footsteps of Athena Swan Charter, Gati has, promoted gender equality in STEM by providing structured framework for Indian academic and research institutions. Moving on to the next slide. Yes. Indian government has documented the reflections of its other major initiatives through qualitative survey. And here is a representation of the same. Through this representation, we can see that 55% of the women interviewed believe that they are adequately represented in the STEM-oriented fields. Parallelly, 66% of the men interviewed, they agree that women are adequately represented in the STEM-oriented fields. And when we are talking of academic and non-academic women participants, academic women participants are of the view that 51%, and non-academic participants are of the view that 60.9% women are adequately represented in STEM in the present times. Okay. While I've already discussed about the Vigyan Jyoti scheme, herein I'm referring to the registration of success of the Vigyan Jyoti scheme throughout India. It has been implemented in all of India. This the map which I'm showcasing, it is a physical map of India, and this Vigyan Jyoti scheme has been implemented in 250 districts of 34 states and union territories of India, and it is covered from north to south, east to west, all the dimensions of the country. And the geographical gaps have been actually curved and covered by this particular scheme for women in AI in our particular nation, and the biggest beneficiary has been women in this. Here is, sorry, I forgot to mention a point. Herein, through Vigyan Jyoti, students of class 10 to 12, women students have been enrolled, and that is around 21,652 lakhs of girls have been enrolled in these particular classes in STEM education in particular. Then there are scholarships being distributed to the particular scheme to girl students. And this particular graph shows the collaboration from 2020 to 21 to the last year, and we can see good upsurge from 21 to 22 year. However, there is a slight dip in the last year, as already we have discussed that India has its own socio-cultural challenges. And I think this is the major reason after our research that we are expecting to witness a slight more variation in future as well. And because of the particular country-specific socio-cultural challenges, we will still take more time to overcome this particular problem. However, we are working really hard to move ahead. This is another Wise Kiran scheme of the Indian government, and this particular data is showcasing the implementation and success rate of this particular scheme in India. So while India is making significant strides with its national schemes to address gender bias in AI, we have already registered and witnessed the existence of India and UK coordinations, as I have discussed the Athena Swan and Gati sponsor collaboration. In Indian schemes, these coordinations are clearly visible. At the same time, UK stands out as a leader in fostering an inclusive and equitable AI ecosystem. In this particular slide, we will be exploring how UK's good practices are, working ahead to give a clarity for how AI ecosystem can be built on the geopolitical level. And as UK actively ensures embedding fairness principles in the AI design, supporting underrepresented groups in the AI workforce, and promoting collaborative projects that integrate inclusivity from inception. Moving ahead, the bias mitigation is a cornerstone of UK's AI strategy. This includes developing guidelines and frameworks to identify and eliminate discriminatory patterns in datasets, encouraging transparency in AI algorithms, ensuring fairness in outcomes across both the genders, obviously. Gender equality in leadership, wherein women are promoted to decision-making roles in AI and tech industries. They are being supported in mentorship and sponsorship programs. Furthermore, education and pipeline development, schools and universities are promoted, are supported to promote AI education tailored for girls. Scholarships and apprenticeships are encouraged more with the women-centric AI in AI-related fields with women-centric objectives. A very important act from UK we can see, that is Online Safety Act, which is on protecting women and girls online. it has introduced very much critical measures, like in section 54, it refers to Office of Commerce guidelines about protection of women and girls, which mandates platforms to address gender-based abuse and harassment. In the same Act, Schedule 4 of the Codes of Practice under Section 41 outlines enforceable standards to create safer online space for women. Certainly, these measures ensure that AI moderates and identifies harmful content equitably, reducing gender online risks. Furthermore, the Competition and Markets Authorities analyzing algorithms brings in the element of transparency in algorithmic operations, accountability for unintended gender biases in commercial AI systems, and fair outcomes across all demographics. So this multifaceted approach of UK in addressing gender bias regularly measuring education, workforce initiatives, and other measures, it really comes out as a good practice. And already India is on the same line, and we would like, as UK has it has come up with the good results. We hope that India, working on the same footsteps, can register better successful rates in future. Herein, we are discussing the impact of all the schemes and initiatives Indian government has taken till now. So 40% of total STEM graduates in India currently are women. However, there is a difference in between the actual professional percentage, that is 27% of scientists, engineers, and technologists. And certainly the reason behind is the multilingual and multicultural society that India has, and it's, India-centric problems, as has been discussed in the beginning of our presentation. However, in STEM, when other than mathematics, when we're talking of medicine, in that also India has gone up from 27% in 19 to 20 to 43% in 23 to 24. The women enrollment has actually increased. Over the past decade,
I'm very sorry, Dr. Richa. We need to wrap up because we need to start discussion. I'm very sorry interrupting you.
It's just the last line.
Final conclusion. Thank you.
So we have increased, we have, got an uptake of 107% of PhD degrees in the upcoming in the recent years. So there is the initiatives which Indian government is taking. They are this was the last slide actually, and my last lines. Okay, so this is a bit on what we have discussed about how India is shaping its national strategy on artificial intelligence. And yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, excellent, Dr. Risha, and also Ms. Sajina, for giving us this policy landscape and all these interventions that and programs that the Indian government is doing to advance gender equality in this age, in this digital age, and related to AI. This is really relevant in terms of understanding the for young people and for women and girls to understand the risks that they have online. So now I will open the discussion and with a question precisely on that topic. So I will ask a question that, giving these unsafe digital spaces that we heard from all these different presenters in different countries. So how can youth-led organizations develop initiatives that can protect young people from online harms, but also empower them to reclaim and actively engage in these spaces? And maybe this question will be for Mrs. Patricia Lucena, who is the Executive Director of the Yabong Philippines. Would you like, Patricia, just to keep it very short, 2 minutes? Thank you.
Mabuhay. Thank you so much for that wonderful question, Claudia. And maybe to start, at Yabong, we know that when digital spaces feel unsafe, it really stops young people, especially women and girls, from sharing their ideas and participating fully in online spaces. And that is a huge loss, because the voices of young people and women and girls are very, very important. Cyberbullying, harassment, misinformation really push people out of these spaces. And with 87 million internet users in the Philippines in 2024, the risk of these problems is even greater. And we saw that in Agita's presentation on Indonesia, that shows similar challenges that we face in the Philippines. And I know that almost all countries in Asia Pacific also face the same challenges. And that's why we focus on more than just helping young people stay safe, but we also help them take back these spaces so that they can lead and share their ideas in creative and positive change. So in Yabong, we do that in 4 ways. The first is we teach digital skills through media and information literacy, or MIL. And we think that it's all about young people, teaching young people how to think critically about the information that they see online, and also how to stay safe in these spaces. So for example, we've created this campaign called ProMil, or Promoting MIL, for anti-trafficking in persons advocates aged 13 to 18 years old. And we taught them how to spot misinformation related to human trafficking, and also create campaigns to raise awareness. And this kind of training gives a lot of young people the tools to protect themselves, and at the same time educate others, especially those in their community. The second thing is we try to empower youth to lead digital campaigns. And when the pandemic happened, everything shifted online, and we saw how it was very challenging for a lot of organizations to continue their projects. So we thought of a way to help them continue it through digital campaigns. So a big focus here is helping young people create their own digital initiatives, like maybe helping them on how to create their publication materials, when to post, how to post it, how to increase engagement online. And many of our participants in our projects really showed that they were able to do it because of how we were able to capacitate them. And this shows that when young people feel safe and supported, they don't just participate, but they also lead. The third one is building supportive communities. So at Yabong, we believe that young people shouldn't have to face challenges alone. And that's why we build communities and networks where they can support each other. We've done this through creating a Facebook group called Youth for MIL. And to anyone who's watching here, I recommend for you to join. So in there, you can promote about your advocacies. You can even plug your upcoming events. And that's the network that we have created for young people, for them to feel safe when engaging online. And lastly, including everyone, no matter the sex, the gender, or where they're coming from, we need to include everyone. And we also need to make sure that programs are inclusive, because we know that different groups face different challenges. Women, LGBTQIA+ youth, and others often deal with unique risk online. And challenges also vary across countries. As Sajina and Dr. Richa's presentation, India faces unique challenges shaped by its socio-cultural context. And this shows how important it is to find solutions that fit each country's specific situations as well. So we listen to their experiences and design programs that meet their needs. And this makes sure that our work isn't just helpful, but it's also meaningful because everyone is included. So in summary, I'd like to say that creating safe digital spaces isn't just about protecting young people, women and girls including, it's also about empowering them to thrive. And at Yabong, we see young people as leaders, and with the right tools and support, they can transform these digital spaces into places where they feel accepted and they can succeed. That would be all. Thank you so much, and maayong adlaw.
Thank you very much, Patricia. It's so inspiring to know about the work of your organization, Yabong. Someone just dropped in the chat that if you can name the online mitigation that you just mentioned there. Thank you. So my next question is about the evidence that we have in the region in terms of data sources for cybercrime. I think, as Dr. Daniela mentioned, there's some work that has been done with in Indonesia, with Indonesia Women in Cybersecurity and the National Cyber and Crypto Agency. So I don't know if maybe Mrs. Evanur or Mrs. Nurul Sugarti would like to answer this question about, and maybe follow up on Dr. Daniela's presentation of what evidence that we have and what are the methodologies that you are using to collect these data sources. Thank you.
Hello, is my voice okay? Maybe I want to explain that we have BSSN have a report that conducted during 2024 showed that two highest platforms for the distribution of pornographic content in Indonesia were Telegram and X or Twitter. Telegram, both accounts used to create AI-generated deepfake pornographic content, while X accounts use both for disseminating content and providing service, such as buying, selling, or creating AI-generated deepfake pornographic content. So our social network analysis reveals a cross-platform community that forms a market environment with production, distribution, demand, and the availability of platforms enabling these activities. This analysis also reveals interconnections between X or Twitter accounts, forming several groups or communities. Based on this information, it can be inferred that these accounts are likely interconnected and may be operated by the same person or a group affiliated within a network. BSSN and law enforcement agencies work together for further investigation to explore the possibility of a criminal network within this industry. Maybe this short explanation for what Dr. Daniela showed the picture of our social network analysis. Thank you.
Hello, thank you, Mrs. Nurul. I don't know if Mrs. Heavenur would like to add something from the Indonesian Women in Cybersecurity work.
Thank you, Claudia. Maybe I add a little bit. So AI actually deepfake cases in Indonesia, probably many, but since we don't have data on that, so Indonesia Women in Cybersecurity at the moment continuing doing a study on this, the impact of AI and deepfake together with BSSN, with Daniela and other community to learn more about the impact and also what we can do to prevent this, to limit the impact. So I think I'm agree with all the speaker here, the really great speaker. Really, I love the presentation of Agita. We can see that Indonesia has half of the population which is 200 million is an active user for social media, and half of it is a woman. So we can see here is the woman is become a victim, or likely easy to be a victim because of the awareness. Based on Indonesia Women in Cybersecurity experience, we work together with many local regional organization. Their understanding about the impact of this technology, using a gadget, using a smartphone, using the laptop, they don't know if they share their information, if they share about their personal information to the social media, it can harm them. So the literacy and then the knowledge about this still low in Indonesia. So what we can I'm agree with Agita and then also Patricia in Philippines, and then also Dr. Richa in India, that we need legal framework to protect the society and then women and children particularly because the technology really fast. Technology I think grow really fast, and then we don't equip with the education on top of that, and also we don't have enough public policy and regulation to protect the society for that. So I think what we can do is like what we can do to limit this impact. I think we need to work together to make sure that we have a legal framework in place. We have too many organizations to help government to educate the society. And on top of that, I think we need more woman leader in technology company. Because why? Because I think if we have more woman leader in technology company, I think our voice will be represented by them, our need represented by them, and then I think that's the short-term solution that we can do together. I think that's from us, from Indonesia Women in Cybersecurity. Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Hevanur. So we have a last discussant from Malaysia. So we have been focusing more on Indonesia, on Philippines. So I would like to invite Mrs. Haira, who is the deputy representative of the UNFPA in Malaysia, Mrs. Tengku Haira Tengku Rafiz. Please, can you just tell us a little bit about the situation in Malaysia? What are the policy frameworks, or what are the policy gaps, and also the specific challenges of technology facilitated GBV and cybercrime in Malaysia? Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everyone. So yes, I work in UNFPA in Malaysia, and just like anywhere else in the world, tech-facilitated gender-based violence has been increasing, and unfortunately, the recent cases have led to death by suicide. So in the nature of this being an emerging issue, the policy framework is still evolving, and that brings to, while Malaysia has taken several important steps, we still do not yet have a specific standalone policy framework, or TFGBV. So maybe if I'll just highlight several of the existing policy framework and legislative framework that we have been using in Malaysia to address TFGBV. Malaysia has the Domestic Violence Act, and while it primarily addresses domestic violence, there are plans and considerations to update the law to include provisions for cyber-based violence. There's also the Communication and Multimedia Act, basically criminalizes the use of network facilities or services to transmit offensive, obscene, or false content. And it includes tech-facilitated harassment, abusive behavior, including cyberbullying and online defamation, and also cyberstalking. There's plans around basically the proposed law on image-based sexual abuse, or more commonly known as revenge porn. And then this is still in the process of being finalized, but currently at the present moment, what is being used is the penal code. And it's being used to address various forms of digital abuse, such as distribution of intimate images without consent, basically revenge porn. And there are sections in the penal code that basically highlights word or gesture intended to insult the modesty of a person. And some cases can be applied where gender-based violence, online harassment, cyber stalking, or online sexual exploitation. Malaysia also has the Sexual Offences Against Children Act, and it criminalizes the use of technology to exploit or abuse children. And in terms of actions, and before I come to the challenges, the Women's Development Department under the Ministry of Women, Family and Community Development does provide support services to victims of domestic violence and harassment, and this certainly includes online harassment through counseling, legal aid, and shelter. And there's various forms of awareness raising by the government, civil society organization. The cybersecurity in Malaysia also provides a helpline, Cyber 999 Help Center, which offers resources and support for victims. And Malaysia also has the Communication and Multimedia Commission, which does a lot of promotion on online safety, including public education campaigns, and also works with social media companies for these sort of campaigns. So all in all, I think in conclusion, our main message is that Malaysia has definitely taken very important several steps and to address tech facilitated GBV, but there's still room for improvement in the legal framework. We lack specific comprehensive legislation, but with the emerging issue, the existing provisions are being used to address rising issues. And for victim support and reporting mechanisms as well, there are several services and they focus on physical violence. But as you have heard, the anonymity, complex nature of TFGBV makes reporting mechanism for online abuse also complex. And particularly in the Leaving No One Behind lens that we have for women and particularly marginalized groups, they may hesitate to report due to fear of further victimization and due to lack of digital literacy. Also, just want to highlight finally that in terms of enforcement and awareness, and again, due to issues like anonymous online perpetrators, it's really challenging to investigate cybercrimes. And there are also jurisdictional complications. And we certainly promote, there needs to be more training, capacity building, awareness. UNFPA is doing legal literacy program with some of our partners to basically educate the communities. Enforcement officers like the police also need further training to also understand and tackle tech-facilitated gender-based violence. I'll stop here. Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you very much, Myra. That was really enlightening, and thanks for all efforts that UNFPA is also putting on tackling this issue and for policy change in Malaysia. We are now opening the Q&A. Please drop your questions. Someone asked about East Asian countries, specifically in Japan, and how are they doing, and if there are any collaborations with Southeast countries on technology facilitated GBV programs. I don't know if anyone can take that question.
I have a limited knowledge which I can add. So Japan is also a part of this GPay, that is a global participation of AI. So it is also a founding member of this group, which has been derived from the G7 countries. So this group includes 29 countries, including EU, and which is being organized by OECD, and the UNESCO is also a part of that. So through that and through its success, we can say that it is a good collaboration at the global level. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Gina. I don't think we have any other questions, and we are reaching at the end of our time also. So maybe just to close this session, I would like to ask for attendees if they would like to share the work that they are doing with us. We are trying to take this work forward with UNU, with other UN agencies, UNODC, and with the NGOs. So please feel free to contact us at UNUIGH and see how can we collaborate. And I would like to thank to all amazing presenters and discussants, and it was great to have all these countries represented with India, Indonesia, with Philippines, with Malaysia. And in particular, this session was organized by the United Nations University with the Beacon of Rights and with the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. So I would like also to thank these partner organizations for putting together this event, and all the discussants and all the wonderful work that you are doing on tackling tech-facilitated GBV and cybercrime. So yes, so thank you, and please keep in touch, and we are going to release a report for this session and maybe a policy brief with all the attendees, and we would like also the participants to contribute to it. So you will receive an email from us very soon. Thank you very much.